wide.
Hello everyone, I am TG and welcome back to the House of Sleaze. Today I'm here to bring you guys a comprehensive guide on how to play Survivor in Resident Evil Reverse. And the reason why I'm making this guide is because full release is just around the corner. Just around the corner, we get that juicy full release that we've all been waiting for. So before we all dive into that, I just want everyone to have, kind of the basics on how to play Survivor, how to, exploit each character's weaknesses, strengths, and pretty much how you guys get to the top of the charts regardless of who you use. Now, I already did kind of like a Survivor Basics guide, so go ahead and check that one out if you have not already. That's got a lot of good information, and this one's going to be, a little bit more advanced, so it's kind of a companion piece. So with that said, let's just dive right in. So first we're going to talk about the big, the bad, the stupid-faced Chris Redfield. Now, his loadout is the Samurai Edge handgun and the CQBR assault rifle. So there's not much to say about the Samurai Edge. It's just a basic handgun. It hits hard enough, it's fast enough, reloads okay, but you're not really going to be using it too much. What you're going to be using is the CQBR. And that assault rifle, it can really lay down some fucking suppressing fire, let me tell you. This is going to be your bread and butter. This is what Chris uses to mow down bioweapons, to mow down survivors, etc. Now, what's really important are his skills. The first of which is Indomitable Spirit. Now, what Indomitable Spirit does is it makes you completely immune to all damage, but also completely immune to all flinching, all knockdown, anything like that. So basically, anyone can unload on you and do as much damage as they possibly can. Chris isn't going to die. He's going to stay at that little 1 HP magic pixel. Now, this lasts about 5 seconds. And there's a couple ways you can go about using this. The first of which is defensively. So if you're under heavy fire and you just want to get the hell out of there, pop Indomitable Spirit, use Chris's 3 dodges to just go. Just go as far as you can. You will be completely safe on your way out. Another way you want to use this is offensively. And when I say offensively, I mean primarily against bioweapons. So if there's a bioweapon after you, you do a little bit of damage, a little bit of dance and go toe to toe, then pop your Indomitable Spirit, and all the damage he does will do absolutely nothing Chris. But the lower he gets your health, the more Chris is actually going to do to that bioweapon, because his passive skill, Pride of the Original 11, causes him to do more damage to bioweapons based on how much health he is losing. So as soon as you start losing health, even a little bit, you start doing a little bit more damage. And that just quantifies the less health you have, the more damage you do. So it works really well in conjunction with Indomitable Spirit. However, Indomitable Spirit can be used offensively also against survivors. And when I say that, I mean you can be in the brawl and, really going toe-to-toe with somebody and they think they might get you. You pop Indomitable Spirit, you basically have 5 seconds to do away with them, to do whatever you can to stop them. They can be using, all their abilities. Claire can be throwing an alternator at you, and while that shit's in the air, you pop Indomitable Spirit, you are good. You do not get hit by your stun, and you can start laying into them. Now, quite frankly, Indomitable Spirit is one of the best abilities in the game currently, and this is a big reason why people are saying Chris is the best survivor. I don't think that personally, but I can see an argument why it would be, because a good Chris can use this very, very strategically. You just have to make sure when you use it, make sure whatever you want to get done, you're gonna get done, because without Indomitable Spirit, Chris is pretty much a sitting duck. He's kind of like a glass cannon, because his health is actually lower than any other survivor in the game, strangely enough. Next, Chris has the AMG 78 powered exoskeleton Joe Baker 1-2. Of course, Chris gets a fucking punch as one of his abilities. I feel like Capcom is in on the joke. What this is basically is you wind up for about half a second and then you just plow forward with your big old fist. Whichever way you're pushing that directional stick, you're going to do a big old punch. If you hit a survivor with this, they're going to get knocked down and you can basically secure your kill, because in this game, knockdown is fucking everything. Once you knock them down, you can just lay into them. There's really no reason you shouldn't kill them. And this can also be used against bioweapons. It's a little more tricky, a little more spooky, but when you're using this in conjunction with his Indomitable Spirit, you don't really have to worry too much, because this thing does so much damage already. However, if you have your Indomitable Spirit up and your health is super, super low, when you use this against a bioweapon, fucking good night. Forget it. Fucking forget it. That bioweapon's going down. The only downside with the big old punch is it's a little bit hard to aim. It takes a few, practice runs, if you will. Once you get it down, though, you're going to be able to hit with it every time. It functions similar to Claire's alternator, Ada's pipe bomb, and anything like that. You just need to use it, and then you'll, be able to use it well, if you know what I mean. Lastly, one thing you really need to be aware of when you're using this is if you happen to miss like I do all the time, you're completely open. It's got a long animation, so it takes a little bit for him to, finish punching. And if you don't hit somebody with that, you're completely open to just get mowed down. So make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure your aim is true. Now, lastly, Chris's passive skill is Pride of the Original 11. And that's just pretty much the coolest sounding thing in the world. What it obviously means is, the original 11 stars members. And how it works is the less health you have, like I already said, the more damage you're going to do to bioweapons. So it's very straightforward, very effective. This isn't a passive where you have to worry too much about it because it's automatic. Every time you're taking damage, you're just going to start doing more damage to bioweapons. So you don't need to be on top of it. It's not like Ada's dodge where, you have to oh, I see I have a dodge. Right now I'm good to go. It's just always there. So you don't even really have to think about it in order to use it. Obviously, this is one of the strongest abilities in the game because it makes Chris just have a laughable time when it comes to bioweapons. You're going to shred through anything. You can shred through a Fat Molded, you can shred through a Jack, you can shred through a Gamma, shred through a Nemesis. You can even shred through a Tyrant. If you time your Indomitables right, you're not going to have a problem with any bioweapon. Alternatively, the problem with this is it doesn't really factor into your survivor play. So if you're in a game where, people... they're not dying, you're surrounded with a bunch of survivors, you're gonna get absolutely nothing out of this. So this is one of the only abilities that I would say you only really utilize it half the time. Next, I just want to cover briefly Chris's strengths and weaknesses. So as I've already stated, his big strength is dealing with bioweapons. Pretty much nobody is going to be able to take on a bioweapon like Chris can. Even a Hunk, even a Leon with his big old shotgun. Chris is just going to get it done. So where he really excels is taking advantage of not only, people coming after you for a revenge kill, but also big bioweapon brawls that, happen quite often in this game, where there's just bioweapons slugging in on each other. If you're Chris, you just fucking swing on by and, sit back a little bit and just mow them all down. Take all the kills, take all the points. Well, that's what Chris does best. Now, when it comes to his weaknesses, I would say survivor combat. And the reason I say that is although he still has his Indomitable, which, saves his life, he has nothing that directly, increases his damage or his ability to fight survivors. On top of that, his health is so low. So once that Indomitable's gone, Chris is absolutely gone. I don't know why, but Chris has the lowest health in the game for some reason, and it's by quite a large margin. The next lowest would be Ada, and even the disparity between Ada and Chris is huge. I don't know why it's functioning that way. I guess because they wanted to make him a glass cannon. But that being said, just keep that in mind. What you want to do is, try your best to time your Indomitables and survive. Chris gets 3 dodges, just like all the other male characters and Ada. So he can very much weave in and out of combat. You just gotta be a little bit careful. The last thing I want to note whenever it comes to Chris's weaknesses, and I mean this isn't really a weakness, but it's something that you need to, be on top of, is whenever you see a Chris or when you're using a Chris and you use Indomitable Spirit, you will see this white glow around him. That means Indomitable is active. So once that glow is done, that means his Indomitable is done. So if you're fighting against a Chris and you see the white glow has just, dissipated, that means he's going down. He's going to probably go down one shot, quite frankly. Also, his Pride of the Original 11 has a red aura to it. So the more red and juicy you see Chris, that means the more damage he's going to do to bioweapons. So if you are chasing him as a bioweapon, fucking run the other way. Maybe think about, giving up your revenge kill, quite frankly. So in conclusion, if the playstyle you're looking for is in the fray fighting, getting those kills, fucking pisses people off, not allowing them to get revenge kills, go for Chris. He's a very fun character to play. I don't personally like him, but I can see the appeal to him. and he is definitely pretty top tier. I'd say he's one of the easier characters to use. In fact, he's probably up in like top 1 or 2 of like ease of access. So just bear that in mind. If you want somebody a little more complicated, maybe go for an Ada, maybe go for a Leon, etc. Next on the docket is Jill Valentine. And Jill's a character that, you know, I'm kind of coming around to. At first I didn't really like her too much, but the more I play her, the more fun I'm actually having as her. She is kind of like a jack of all trades, or a Jill of all trades, if you will. She can kind of, you know, do all kinds of things based on however you want to play her. So that's really cool. I like characters like that. And when it comes to her loadout, it's the exact same as Chris's. It functions in the exact same way, so there's really no need to go into that. Her CQBR is going to be her bread and butter. When it comes to her skills, the first one I'm going to talk about is the landmine. So the landmine might seem like kind of not Jill-like, and I thought that too, because it's not, but it's pretty neat how it functions. You're going to be running and you drop this, and it kind of slows down your run animation for a second, so, you know, she kind of just like jitters a bit, so maybe don't be too close to the enemy when you drop them. And it has about a 1 second startup time. So after 1 second, it's going to start to beep and it's going to start to glow. It's actually kind of easy to miss these things and get hit by them if you're not really paying attention. But what is a dead giveaway is the sound more than the visual. If you hear that, that means you got to be on the fucking lookout, because there is a goddamn mine somewhere around you. A lot of the times, what I like to do with the mine, when I see a lot of other players doing, is setting them and shooting them yourself, because Jill can shoot them and they explode. And they're going to do the same amount of damage as they would if somebody just tripped them. So a good Jill, if you're on her ass, she's going to be dropping mines and then turning around and shooting them. So you think you're safe because you dodged them? Not the case, sir. Not the case, ma'am. You gotta always be paying attention for that. A lot of times what the best thing to do is, whenever you see a mine and you're chasing down a Jill, is to dodge through it. If you have, you know, the dodge capabilities to do so. Obviously, another big advantage of the mine is you can kind of like set it and forget it. That way somebody could just accidentally trip it across the map and, you know, you get a kill. So that's pretty sweet. What you're primarily going to be using them for, though, is whenever somebody is chasing you. Or what I like to do more than that is to set them down right under item drops. So wherever a canister spawns, wherever a weapon spawns, or wherever a heal spawns, I pick it up and I drop a mine right away. That way, if anybody wants that pickup when it respawns, they have to either shoot it, or get hit by it, or walk away. And quite frankly, you don't want to be making those decisions whenever you are under attack from someone else. It really takes some crackerjack thinking. The last thing I want to mention about the landmine is you can have a maximum of 2 of these on the map at a time. Now that's kind of a letdown. I would have liked, you know, at least 3, and you can technically have 3, but once you drop the third one, it like your first one will despawn in like a really short duration. So just bear that in mind. You can't just be dropping them all over the map non-stop. Now her next ability is the Hot Dogger. Now what the Hot Dogger does is exactly what it did in every other iteration of it that we have seen. It is a melee slash that does big damage. It's actually a short little combo if you hit with it, up to 3 attacks, and it does big damage. It doesn't kill people straight up anymore. It used to in the closed beta, but they've actually adjusted the damage of that, among other things, so it doesn't, you know, immediately kill them. And what's really fun and interesting about Hot Dogger is if you dodge and use the Hot Dogger, Jill will actually change her ability to a big upward swipe with the Hot Dogger, and that does huge damage, and it also knocks down your opponents. So you can actually be using your dodges offensively, and I would say if you ever see a Jill rolling up to you, I would roll the other way, because chances are she is going to be using her Hot Dogger immediately after that roll has concluded for big damage, and you're probably gonna die. When it comes to the range of the Hot Dogger, it's pretty much in line with Ada's Somersault, Leon's Kick, and a little bit shorter than Chris's Boulder Punch, and a little bit longer than Hunk's little stabby stab. So you gotta be pretty accurate with this. It's kind of hard to master, but once you use it a few times, just like all the other melee abilities, you will understand its range very quickly, and you'll be able to use it to devastating effect. Another thing to note about it is whenever you complete the 3-hit Hot Dogger combo, there's a brief stun. So if the object of your destruction does not die, they'll be stunned. Unless, of course, they are a bioweapon. And quite frankly, if you're using a hot dogger on a bioweapon, you are a braver man than I. Although it does huge damage, that's some risque shit. Now, lastly, her passive skill, Last Escape, which used to be called Desperation, but makes a lot more sense that it's called Last Escape. What this does is after you dodge, your attack damage is temporarily raised. So you will know a Jill has this active whenever she glows red after a dodge. It doesn't last that long, but long enough to make your hot dogger fucking hurt, and pretty much anything else as well. It does increase your attack damage quite a bit, so just be on the lookout if you're, playing against a Jill and you see it. I would not tango with her right after she dodges, but also keep in mind she only gets 2 dodges. So quite frankly, this passive isn't really up that often, and I don't really find that it helps my Jill game that much. I don't find that when I'm dodging, I'm, really putting down some suppressive fire on people. Mostly when I dodge with Jill, I'm trying to get out of there. Then again, that could just be my playstyle. I have seen some Jills use this to frightening effect. Overall, though, I would say this is probably one of the weaker passives in the game, just whenever you stack it up against some of the other amazing ones we have, like Chris's or Ada's. So, Jill, middle of the road. That's kind of what she does best. That's kind of what she is in every game that she's in. Now, when it comes to Jill's strengths and weaknesses, what I would say her most outstanding strength is her unpredictability, because Jill can be played in so many different ways. You can be a long range fighter, you can be a close range fighter, you can be a fucking eagle eye like Ada just waiting in the wings, or you can even be a little bit stealthy like the old Hunk. So I would say whenever you see a Jill, the worst thing about her is you don't know what she's going to do. It all depends on how you choose to play her. She's going to do pretty decent in almost any situation that you throw her in, so she's a pretty good character to use if, you don't exactly know the fundamentals of the game yet and you kind of want to get a feel for it. However, that being said, she's also a pretty complex character, so I don't suggest using her as your first character if you're just getting into the game. I suggest using somebody a little more user-friendly like Claire or Chris. But like other characters that has a high skill cap, she's also very rewarding once you know how to use her, and you can really, really, really do some big damage. Now, lastly, when it comes to her weaknesses, what her weakness is, I would say, is her inability to seal the deal, quite frankly. Maybe it's just me, but I have some trouble with old Jill, locking down kills against bioweapons especially, just because the tools in her arsenal are so specialized that you can't just, bop around and, do all kinds of damage willy fucking nilly like you can as a Chris. You gotta commit. Something about Jill is you feel like you're putting all your eggs in one basket whenever you're chasing down a target, or at least I do. Maybe that's just me. I'm not the best Jill player out there. And, I'm not your fucking real mom, so you don't even have to listen to me. Next, we have Leon. Now, Leon is probably the most user-friendly character that we have in the game right now. There's a couple reasons for that. One being that he's pretty simple to use overall. None of his skills are, crazy and have some kind of high skill cap that you really need to master. He's pretty easy to pick up and play. His weapons are strong, easy to use. His skills are straightforward, and he's got 3 dodges, pretty high health. So overall, he's going to be the one I suggest that you play first if you've never played the game before, because he's really, really easy to get into, and he'll really give you a good feel for how the game works. Now, when it comes to his loadout, he has the Matilda handgun and the W870 shotgun. So the Matilda is, quite honestly, a little bit underwhelming. However, it does factor into his skills that make it just a little bit better. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the pied de resistance of Leon is the W870 shotgun. So the W870 is obviously, bar none, the best for close quarters combat, and it does pretty good at a medium range too. You'd be surprised how inaccurate you can actually be and still get big damage at a mid range. But of course, the trade-off for this is it completely falls off at long range. Leon doesn't have much long range game. And on top of that, he only has 4 shells in his shotgun with a backup of 4. So getting ammo as Leon is actually more important than I would say anybody else, because you need to keep your shotgun loaded and you got to be reloading over and over and over again. And basically, the only time you're ever not gonna use the W870 is whenever you're using his dual wield skill, which utilizes his Matilda handgun. Speaking of which, his dual wield skill, what it is very straightforward. Leon takes out 2 handguns and his rate of fire increases as well as his ammo capacity. And it also gives you a laser sight that is surprisingly effective. So this is where Leon can actually get a little bit of long-ranged game, because your bullets are basically going to go exactly where you aim them. Now, dual wield, it doesn't last too long, quite frankly. It lasts close to, I would say, 10 to 15 seconds, and then you switch back to your normal Matilda. And it's important to note also, if you switch weapons during dual wield, he will automatically go back to his single Matilda, and you've basically wasted your dual wield, so just keep that in mind. Dual wield is absolutely great for mowing down bioweapons, mowing down survivors, and like I said, it's very easy to use. So if your accuracy is hot garbage like mine is, this helps immensely. Next on the docket is Leon's roundhouse kick. So again, very straightforward. Leon does a short range roundhouse kick that knocks down anybody it hits, and it does a small amount of damage. Now, what's interesting to note is that you can actually hit more than one person with this if you're lucky. I've never been able to do it, but you know what? They claim it, so I'm just going to say that is the case. The range on this thing is deceptively low, and the damage that it does is also nothing to write home about. What is good about this ability is the knockdown, and like I've said before, knockdown is a game changer. If you've knocked down somebody, you've basically secured that kill, especially with Leon, because he can just blow their face apart with his W870. Now, unfortunately, just due to the range of this thing, you're really not going to get that much use out of it, or at least I didn't. It's very iffy whether or not you hit with it, and a lot of the times you don't want to risk it whenever you could just use your W870 instead. So that's just my opinion. I have seen people use it to great effect, but overall it's one of the weaker melee abilities in the game as it stands right now. And one last thing to note about the roundhouse kick is it does not knock down bioweapons, it still damages them, but like I said, the damage is so lackluster that it's really not worth using on a bioweapon, especially because if you're in close range, you don't want to be meleeing or else you're going to go down, so Leon would be much better off just using his W870. Lastly, Leon's passive is Rookie Spirit. It's my first day! And what this does is partially recover a portion of lost HP over time. So whenever you go into danger, Leon is basically going to regen a little bit of his health and bring him back up to caution. So this is one of the better passives in the game, in my opinion, because Leon already has a large health pool, and this just extends it even more. So basically, whenever you're down in danger, you'll see Leon will glow nice and green. That means his Rookie Spirit has taken effect, and he is healing while that's going on. However, that's kind of a double-edged sword, because it means if you see a Leon who's glowing green, that means he's healed already. So his internal cooldown of Rookie Spirit is not going to be able to trigger again. That means his health pool is going to be lower than it usually is. So take that opportunity to take Leon down. So bottom line, Rookie Spirit is often going to save your life, because not only does it increase your health, but it can also confuse players because they think you're already down, and then Rookie Spirit goes off, and oh my, you have more health yet again. So it makes Leon actually one of the more bullet spongy characters in the game. Because what's great about Rookie Spirit is you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to do anything. It just happens naturally. So every time you go down to danger, you're going to get a little bit more health. And you can just go on with your game. So now it's time to talk about Mr. Kennedy's strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, his overwhelming strength that I think stands out more than anything else is his short to mid-range game. He's pretty much untouched when it comes to short range. He's going to blow everybody else out of the water damage-wise, and his mid-range as well is pretty high up there. Maybe not the best, but it is very close. And of course, his health pool is huge. He still doesn't have as much health as Claire, even whenever he gets his Rookie Spirit, which is a whole nother goddamn topic. But he is definitely sturdy. He also has great mobility. He's got 3 dodges, which will allow him to get up in your face and use that short range strength to his advantage, but he's also great at getting away. And a lot of the times what I see some Leons doing is they practice with the roundhouse kick to the point where they're actually using it both offensively, which is obvious, and defensively. So if you are just in the shit and you got to get out of there, I see a lot of Leons roundhouse kick and dodge away because they do have the dodges to do that. Now, when it comes to weaknesses, obviously Leon falls short in his long range game. He doesn't really have much aside from his dual wield, but when your dual wield's not up, there's not much you can do. You have to get in close, and that can be scary sometimes in this game because it's so fast paced that up close is really not where you want to be. And of course, the other thing about Leon is he's so, how do I put it, average in every way. He's not bad, he's not good, he just kind of is. And that can kind of be a little disheartening to some players because they want a character that can specialize in something or really excel in one area. Leon doesn't really have that, just a jack of all trades, master of none, similar to Jill, but even more mediocre. Now, that doesn't mean he is a bad character. All the characters have their ins and outs, and they're all very fun to play, Leon included. So don't let that get you down. But if it's your first time playing the game, I highly suggest you use Leon to really get a feel for things, and then see who you want to play after that. Well, now it's time to talk about Claire, and oh my, is there a lot to say. So, you'll remember that I said if you start off the game, you should probably be playing as Leon before anyone else just to get the feel for things. Well, the reason I didn't say to start as Claire is because she is so good. She is so beginner friendly. She's so easy to use that I cannot imagine that they are not going to nerf her in some way for the launch of the game. She has arguably the best machine gun in the game, which is the MQ-11. She has the best stun lock game in her alternator, and she has the most health in the game by a large, and I'm talking a large margin. And on top of all that, she can heal both her health and her stamina, which is going to give her mobility and survivability. So overall, when it comes to characters, if you want to kind of just play on autopilot and just win, go with Claire. She is so easy to use, she is so strong, but like I said, I cannot imagine they're going to keep her the same for full release because she's just too powerful. So, you know, take everything with a grain of salt, and let's talk a little bit about her loadout. So she uses the Quick Draw Army handgun and the MQ-11 submachine gun. You're not really going to be using the Quick Draw Army that often, even though she does have a passive that pretty much plays into the Quick Draw. There's really not a need for it, I would say. You can pretty much use the MQ the entire game and not even worry about it because she's so strong anyway that it doesn't even matter. But if you do choose to use it, it shoots insanely quick, but it reloads insanely slow unless you're using her passive. And the MQ-11 is by far the fastest machine gun. It's one of the most accurate, and overall I would say it's the best because you can really lock down both survivors and bioweapons and do huge amounts of damage in a very short amount of time. And on top of all of that, it's super accurate. Now, talking about her skills, first she has the adrenaline shot. What this is a little injection that she uses to recover a small amount of HP and stamina. And that might not seem like it's so great, but I'm telling you, it really is. What makes it so good is Claire already has such a huge health pool that this is basically just going to make it seem like she has unlimited health. Anytime I run into a Claire one-on-one, regardless of who I'm using, I fucking sigh and facepalm. I'm just like, oh my god, can I just get out of here and fight somebody else? It really is that hard to face her. It's like a war of attrition, and she's always going to win. She can recover her HP and stamina, and thus, in effect, have 3 dodges as opposed to only 2. And you're just not going to be able to take her down. Next is her modified alternator, and this is the Pierre de Resistance. What this is Claire will throw a little electric alternator in front of her in an arc, and every single person it hits, not just one person, not just one bioweapon, anything it hits will get stunned and locked down for roughly 5 seconds. And believe me, that is more than enough time for Claire to just wail on you with her MQ-11 and secure a kill. It's very, very rare, unless the Claire playing has the worst accuracy imaginable, that you won't just completely die whenever you're hit by a modified alternator. It's basically a win button. And I say that with no hint of hyperbole. It really is that strong. If you've ever been in a game and seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This right here is the thing that I think needs to be nerfed more than anything else. Even if they keep Claire with high health, if they just reduce at least the radius of multiplied alternator, or make it so it can only hit one person, then it would make a little bit more sense, and you know, things would be a little more balanced. But as it is now, this thing is the strongest ability in the game. And lastly, we have her passive skill, Speed Loader. So every single time you dodge, you're going to reload your quick draw army, only if it's equipped. So if you have your MQ-11 equipped, it's not going to reload your quick draw army. But other than that, you're going to go from 0 to 6 instantly as soon as you dodge. Now, I said earlier, this actually isn't that useful because you're not going to be using the quick draw army that much. And I did some testing with it. Like, I played a few matches where I only used the quick draw army just because I wanted to see the viability. And there's really no point. You are much, much better off using the MQ-11. So in full release, maybe we'll see some alternating passives here for different game styles. But as it stands now, Speed Loader, not so great. Lastly, I know it's already been said, but we're going to talk a little bit about her strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, her strengths are pretty much everything. Her health pool is unmatched. Her stun lock ability is going to make even a super tyrant cry, and that is that. When it comes to her weaknesses, quite frankly, she doesn't really have any. If I was going to pick one, I would say that her passive is not very useful, but even with that, it still makes her the strongest character in the game by quite a large margin. I'm over here on Team Ada, but I can appreciate how powerful Claire is. So if you really want to get shit done, or if you've lost a few matches and you feel like getting back at the world, jump into Claire and just start steamrolling, because it really is that easy, and quite frankly, it's a lot of fun. She is a dream to play, and I highly recommend everyone play her at least a few times. And now it is time for Miss Ada Wong. So, as many of you are already aware, I am Team Ada all the goddamn way. I have done 2 guides now on Ada that are quite comprehensive, so go ahead and check those out now if you have not already, because I'm not going to spend too long on Ada, because there's only so many times I can say the same thing over and over again, but I am going to give you guys a brief overview. And once again, don't forget to check out those 2 guides that I have already done on the channel. So when it comes to her loadout, Ada's using the Broom HC handgun and the crossbow. So Ada's very, very unique in the sense that her secondary weapon isn't rapid fire. It's not the shotgun like Leon. It's its own beast. It's the single shot crossbow. And her Broom HC handgun functions a little bit differently than everybody else's, in the sense that it's pretty much going to be your main go-to when it comes to your DPS, because it shoots so fast, reloads so fast, and Ada is all about quick, in and out of combat, getting shit done, laying down fire, and getting the fuck out of there. Now, a lot of people out there that have played the game have been saying that the crossbow is garbaggio, and that's just incorrect. The reason they think that is because they are primarily using the crossbow when they're using Ada, and they're not using her handgun, and that's pretty much a recipe for disaster, unless you're playing on the PC and you have god-like aiming. Now, when it comes to her skills, first and foremost, she has the pipe bomb arrow. How this works is Ada will do a little backflip, jump into the air, and shoot a pipe bomb that does a huge AoE of damage, and of course devastates anybody in the blast radius. So this can be a little hard to use because it's so quick that's very difficult to aim. So it does take some getting used to, but once you do, you can use this not only to disengage from combat up close, you can use this to pick people off en masse from afar. This ability is definitely the most devastating thing in her arsenal, and it is what's going to rack up the most kills, because not only does it do big damage and big damage in AoE, but it also stuns anyone it hits. So If they don't die, and I'm looking at you, Hunter Gamma and Super Tyrant, anything with a huge health pool, it is going to stun them and allow you to lay into them with your crossbow and your Broom HC. One last thing to note about the Pipe Bomb Arrow is after you use it, Ada will automatically equip her crossbow, which is a little bit strange, but the reason for this is because it allows you to do a quick follow-up with some big damage. Next, Ada has the somersault, and this is basically a quick little somersault back at a melee range. It used to be an almost non-existent range, but they changed it a little bit. Now it's more in line with the hot dogger or the roundhouse kick. And what this does is knock down anyone you hit with it and does a surprisingly large amount of damage. The somersault is a great tool for getting into combat and getting out to combat and basically securing a kill. Because similar to the roundhouse kick, anytime you knock anyone down, unless your aim is horrible, that's going to be a guaranteed kill. I would say a good chunk of my kills in my career of playing as Ada have come from a somersault knockdown and laying into them with the Broom HC. Now, lastly is Ada's passive, A Spy's Wisdom. How this works is anytime you hit danger, Ada is going to recover a small amount of stamina, which in effect means you're going to get another dodge. So, Ada already has 3 dodges, but if she's under fire, her dodges can almost become perpetual, because if you're in an engagement that is lasting a long time and you're constantly, getting heals moving around the map, but still taking fire, you can pretty much dodge perpetually. And believe me, I have done it. So this passive is what makes it so easy for Ada to get in combat, get out of combat, to zip around the map, chase people down, etc. Pretty much nobody in the game can even come close to Ada's mobility. You can outrun any survivor, you can outrun any bioweapon, including the Super Tyrant. If you are playing your cards right, you'll be able to use your stuns and your mobility to keep that Super Tyrant at bay. And more than one occasion, I have taken down a full health Super Tyrant just based on Ada's mobility alone. She can't be caught, and it's as simple as that. This is one of the reasons that I say Ada is the sleeper character of the game. So many people have been saying that she's not good, and it's just because they don't understand how exactly you're supposed to play her. I've said this ad nauseum, so enough from me. If you want to hear more about that, go ahead and check out my Ada guides. Now lastly, we will just touch on Ada's strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, her main strength is what I already said, her mobility, and the only real weakness that I can say is Ada, well, there's 2. Number 1, she has a high skill cap, so she's very, very difficult to play. She's probably the hardest character to play out of all of them in the beta currently. And her close range game, not so good. But that's not the worst thing, because it's very easy for you to disengage. But if you are stuck in a melee, Ada's going to get outgunned by just about anybody. So just keep that in mind when you're playing her. She is by far, in my opinion, the most fun character to play, just because she is so unique and she specializes so heavily into one thing, which I really, really love. So I highly suggest that you guys give her a try and try not to listen to what other people say. Now, last and certainly not least, we have Hunksicle. This beautiful hunk of man meat is one of the most complex and yet the most fun characters in the game as it stands right now. Now, Hunk's also kind of a strange beast because he kind of excels at whatever you want him to do, but he's able to do anything. So he's like a jack of all trades, but a master of all, if that makes sense. However, he's not broken, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I will try my best to explain. Now, you can play Hunk as just an in-your-face assault Chris type character if you want. You can play him like a sneaky deaky boy running around snaking kills like Ada, or you can kind of play him as a middle of the road kind of, gauge each situation like you do with Leon or with Jill. So it's really up to you, and all of them are viable. It's lady's choice. When it comes to his loadout, his handgun is the MUP, and the MUP it's really powerful, especially against living things. And his submachine gun is the LE5. Now, the LE5 is probably, it's up there as one of the best guns in the game, second only to maybe Claire's MQ11, because it hits hard and hits fast. However, it only has a clip of 32. So that means you are going to have to be scavenging for some ammo. So when it comes to his abilities, first, he's got active cloaking. Now, what this does is it causes Hunk to go semi-transparent. He doesn't turn completely invisible, but what he does do is lose the sound of his footsteps. And that's a fancy way of saying bioweapons cannot see you through the walls. So this is really good for getting away from combat because it lasts about 15 seconds, give or take. And it can really confuse people whenever you're in the fray and there's a lot going on. But you can also be using this to, start up your attack, to get into combat. Because though it doesn't make you invisible, the game is so fast paced that unless you're really looking and you know that there's a Hunk in the game and you know that he's around, it's going to be very difficult for you to see him coming. This is the skill that really allows Hunk to be such a sneaky boy. You can use this and go full stealth with Hunk and you'll have so much fun because people, I guarantee, will just be cursing at you whenever you get them and you're invisible. Trust me, I've been there on both sides. So I know what I'm talking about. Next, Hunk has Assassinate. Now, if you guys played the open beta, you will know that they nerfed this a little bit from the closed beta. It used to be pretty much a one-hit kill regardless to whether or not you were cloaked or not. Now, not so much. If you're cloaked, you can usually still kill most people, but not everyone. I'm looking at you, Claire. However, if you're just using this out in the open, it's going to do about as much damage as Jill's hot dogger. So, another thing to mention about the Assassinate is it's actually pretty hard to use because the range is, since they changed Ada's somersault range, this is now the shortest melee range in the game, even shorter than Leon's roundhouse kick, or if it's not shorter, it's pretty much the same. So it's very difficult to hit with. But one thing that I guess it can be bad or good about it is it auto tracks. So if you are near an enemy player and your accuracy is a little bit off, Hunk will actually auto track and hit them. So that can lead to some fucky kills, but it is what it is. And of course, this is affected by Hunk's next ability, which is his passive, Tragedy of the Reaper. And if that's not the coolest goddamn thing in the world, I don't know what is. Basically, what Tragedy of the Reaper does is every time you get a kill with Assassinate, you will extend your active cloaking. And although that sounds really cool, believe it or not, it's actually not that useful. Your active cloaking is great. It's a great ability for all the things that it can do, but having to land and assassinate in order to extend it from 5 to 10 seconds is really not that big a deal, because active camouflage, I don't think it works in the way that Neobards wanted it to work. And what I mean by that is it's not really stealth. This isn't a stealth game, no matter how stealthy you play. So, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't think it's that great of a passive. I don't think it's that big of a deal. However, it doesn't really take away from Hunk overall as being a very exceptional character. Now, that being said, let's talk a little bit about Hunk's strengths and weaknesses. So obviously, his strengths are he is able to pretty much put up a fight against anything that you throw at him. Any survivor, any bioweapon, he can kind of go toe-to-toe. He can take him down. He's a scary adversary. If you run into a Hunk, you're probably not going to come out on top unless you are on your fucking game. And on top of all that, what I really like most about him is his ability to pretty much play however you want to play. Like I said earlier, you can play him stealth. You can play him like Chris. You can kind of do whatever you want with him and it will work. It meshes together so well. And when talking about weaknesses, quite frankly, the only weakness I'm going to say is his abilities overall are underwhelming. As cool as Tragedy of the Reaper sounds, all his abilities are, I don't know. It seems like there should be more to him, and hopefully we're going to see more because they're going to add, different abilities or different passives at least that we can switch out. Who knows? Hopefully that's the case. I'll be looking at Hunk, though. I'll be keeping my eye on him because he's already pretty scary. but I can see him really becoming something special later on down the line. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was my comprehensive guide of all the survivors in the game so far. I'm really looking forward to them adding new characters, new bioweapons, new maps, new passives more than anything. I think it'd be really cool. Although they're not going to have like builds, because for this kind of game that's not really possible. Well, it's not that it's not really possible, but they're not going to fucking do it. So if they want to give us optional passives, that'd be kind of cool to have, at least a modicum of customization. But what I think we're all really banking on is for them to come out with some other kind of mode. And seeing as they've delayed this game by quite a few months, hopefully that means they're taking some of that into account and they are actually going to provide us with a more robust, let's say, experience. And what I mean by that is maybe this game will last longer than fucking 6 months, Capcom. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this guide. I hope it helped you out just a little bit. Don't forget to check out some of my other guides that go over some of the things that I didn't really mention here. But for the most part, this is going to be a comprehensive survival guide. This is everything that you need to know about all of the survivors in game right now. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching. And of course, I'm TG. If you like what you saw, you know what to do.